It is that time. I'm behind today. Today was an interesting day, but the show must go on. Show must go on. I'll try to ignore the fact that my necklace is twisted, and it's the end of the day, and I feel like I've been through a war zone. Hey, y'all. Good evening. Happy Friday. Dr. Shanae here from the Collective Wellness Institute, and I'm continuing this conversation about trust. We're going to do this every Friday. Um, it's a big conversation, and as couples continue to come into the office and uh, attempt to strengthen their unions and restore fractures in the relationship, the topic of trust keeps coming up. So I thought it appropriate to share with the general public. Those of you who may never come into my office for different reasons could still benefit from having this time of understanding elements that are attached to trust. Stumbling over my words because I got a few things in my mind, so pardon me. But we're going to get through it. And today I'm probably going to do three elements for trust. So the first two parts of the conversation, I talked about honesty and integrity, reliability, open communication, and accountability. Okay. Today, we're going to talk about consistency, which is somewhat different than reliability, vulnerability, and I'm deciding, do I want to talk about support and encouragement or competence? I'm thinking I'm going to go with competence because that has been a theme that kept coming up this week as well. So let's get into this. So, elements of trust. Trust being something that we realize takes time to earn and no time to lose. Oftentimes, we don't understand what we're doing and not doing to gain it or lose it. And it is incredibly personal. So understand that while there are various areas, elements that I'm going to talk about and have already talked about, some of them may be more important to you and some of them may be more important to someone else. And in a healthy relationship, you learn what elements are important to the person you want to be in a relationship with. So let's talk a little bit about consistency. It is the practice of doing something in a way that demonstrates regularity, right? So I consistently put my glasses on when I wake up in the morning so I can see. I may not consistently show up on Facebook on Fridays at 12 o'clock. Like today, it's after 6. But consistency creates a sense of security for folks. It helps you become predictable and it helps people feel prepared and equipped to be in connection with you. You think about 2020 when all of the things that we knew about living came to a screeching halt, and the things that we did consistently, we had to think about. And the fact that we could no longer do those things on autopilot meant that we had to come to terms with a level of uncertainty. When consistency is not there, it can leave a person feeling unclear about what they should or should not do, what they can and cannot rely upon. So, excuse me. Um, and so consistency is important. And it's interesting if you have ever been in business and trained to do marketing in the social media space, one of the things that you hear regularly is that people do business who they know, like, and trust. Well, how do they get to trust you? Because you show up in a certain way consistently, right? So, it's important to evaluate whether or not that is a major variable for you, whether it is a major variable for people that you are working with. In a really personal situation of mine, someone consistently did something that I did not care for, and it led to me making decisions about how I would show up in the relationship because I didn't like it. So, if someone consistently mispronounces your name, um, and you correct them, what does that say to you? What does it say to you? What are you saying if you consistently forget to do something that someone wants you to do? This is a big issue in relationships with husbands and wives or girlfriends and boyfriends. That us just pick up someone consistently leaves a toilet seat up. What does that mean? Um, so yeah, I won't go down the litany of examples that come to mind, but consistency is a big element for building trust and regaining trust in a relationship. Are you consistently where you say you're going to be? Do you consistently do what you say you're going to do? Do you change consistently? Hmm? Um, so yeah, think about that. I really want you to pay attention to the things that you do consistently in relationship and the things that you want people to do consistently in relationship. I don't need a whole lot of uh, phone conversation. I'm not a phone person, so I don't need consistent phone calls. But when I get one, I like it to be meaningful and substantial. So consistency is very personal and very nuanced. And as we build trust, you want to be thinking about what does that mean for you? And as you're earning trust, you want to be thinking about what does that mean in the relationship that you would like to build trust with the other person. That sounds really wordy, but nevertheless, I'm gonna move on. Vulnerability, the um the practice of exposing your sensitivities, your touchy spots, your truth, um, your unguarded self to other people. In the work that I do as a therapist, I get to experience people's vulnerabilities all the time. I mean, people come to me on a daily basis, and that is what they're coming to me for. But I, on the other hand, am not always very vulnerable with everyone. Um, and I've learned over time that that can be harder when you are always vulnerable or always allowing space for other people to be vulnerable. Putting yourself in a position to be vulnerable with others can be quite a scary thing when you're always the one being the space holder. So it's only reasonable to expect in a healthy relationship that both parties would give the other the opportunity to hold space and trust the other person enough to be vulnerable. Vulnerability should be earned. It is not something that we all have a right to in other people's lives, but we should take a chance. You cannot truly be in a healthy relationship without any vulnerability. It means you're being guarded. And there's something about that relationship that is not helping you be safe, feel safe. And so um, when people feel like they can be vulnerable, oftentimes they have an experience of safety. Excuse me. Um, so yeah, I want to unpack that so much more, but I think I need to do a completely different series on vulnerability And I want to get to the third element today because I think this is a big one. And it came up in a couple of sessions. So I want to talk about this a little bit more. The third element, so we talked about consistency and vulnerability as variables that contribute to building trust. If I'm always being vulnerable with you and you're never being vulnerable with me, I'm not sure how much I can trust you because why are you holding back? Right? This is a valid question. Now, um, the third one, the third component is competence. There's so many other things that I could talk about today, but today I want to talk about competence. I had someone come to me in a session and she was really frustrated about a group that she belongs to not being effective in the work that they are all supposed to do together. And her frustration was that the individuals in this group were tenured, they belonged to the group longer than she had, and she just could not wrap her head around the fact that they were not competent. She didn't use the word, but that's what she was talking about. Competence is the ability to execute the task at hand that you are assigned to. You have the capacity to do something you're responsible to do, and you do it well. Not only have the capacity, but you actually do it well, right? And so I think it's important to pay attention to whether or not you're challenged with the character of a person or their competence. I have been in organizations where I absolutely adored the people, absolutely. And sometimes in my own organization, adored the people, love who they were and how they handled themselves for the most part as people of integrity and shared values, but not necessarily happy with how effective they were in some of the roles they were responsible for. And so, is it possible to trust someone to be there for you, but not trust someone to execute a task? Absolutely. Absolutely. I trust my mom to take care of my children if I needed her to. I do not trust my mom to run my counseling practice. Competence, her heart, love, posture, commitment to me and our family gives me trust that she will do well by our children. But she's not trained to be a therapist, nor has she ever ran a business. She's not competent. And so it can be really interesting if you encounter people who are likable, even lovable, but not competent. And I will say, I've had my fair share of absolutely wonderfully likable people who hid behind that. They hid behind being loved by everyone and did not work on becoming better equipped to do what they were supposed to do. So that absolutely can impact your trust in a person, their ability to execute the task that they're assigned to. And that task could be interpersonal or tangible. The task could be being your friend, it could be being your supervisor, it could be being your caretaker, your accountant. It could be those things. And they could mean well and just not be competent. And if that's the case, it is absolutely going to impact your ability to trust. And even more so, if someone is presenting themselves as competent to deliver in a particular area and they are not, it absolutely brings to question just how trustworthy they are. Were they deceptive? Were they misleading or are they ignorant? Do we have the same definition and expectations about this area? So, with all that being said, happy Friday. These are some things that you on talking about building trust, the elements of trust today. I address consistency, vulnerability, and competence. Just because someone is older, someone has been in a role longer, someone has exhibited loyalty, someone has a title, does not mean they're competent. All right. And so just be mindful of the things that are important to you as you are evaluating whether or not you're willing to trust, whether or not you need consistency, vulnerability, competence, accountability, open communication, reliability, honesty, and integrity. Remember, these are all really personal. So that's it. I'm going to go. Got to get ready for the weekend, and I got a trip coming up. Take care until next Friday.